listening to the Rethreading Madness podcast, which airs live on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. We are recorded and produced on the unceded traditional territories of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh nations around Vancouver, BC. I'm your host, Bernadine Fox, and this is the show that dares to change how we think about mental health. Welcome to our show.
I've never been further, knowing what the hell I'm gonna do when I can't seem to find my way under or over or through. Just when I'm ready to give up the fight, there you are when we turn out the lights, and it's alright, it's alright.
You're listening to Rethreading Madness. I'm Bernadine Fox, and today Anne Bemrose and I will be chatting about toxic positivity. Toxic positivity is a means of denial by overlaying positive ideas onto a reality that is decidedly negative. It's excessive and overgeneralized happiness that results in invalidating the authentic emotions in oneself and others that are deemed as not okay. Melissa Dowd defines toxic positivity as when somebody avoids all negative thoughts or feelings, pretending everything is going well, even when it's not. And we all know someone like this. The dreamy eyes, the constant smile, the sweet voice in a person who literally never gets mad and is always calm in their happy demeanor. For folks who live with disabilities and mental health challenges, this translates into a lot of suggestions for getting better that include be positive, or these things happen for a reason, or it could be worse. Now, don't get me wrong, happy is good, but sometimes anger is essential to our well-being. Today, I'm chatting with Anne Bemrose. Anne is a retired minister who's also a writer and a dog trainer, and she lives here in Vancouver with her partner and their two dogs. And Anne and I, the other day, were having a conversation about toxic positivity and how that is experienced by people who have mental health challenges or physical disabilities. And it was such an interesting conversation. I asked her to come chat with me on air, and so I welcome Anne.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Oh, you're welcome. So, Anne, when we were talking the other day, you were mentioning how having a physical disability, and you have a physical disability as well, so do I, that sometimes you're met with this sort of toxic positivity, and I was hoping that you could sort of bring that back into the conversation right now.
Well, sure. I have multiple sclerosis, and what that means is I have some symptoms all the time and others that come and go, and I never really can predict what's going to happen at any point in time. And that constant changing thing can be stressful at least, but then add in how to talk about it at all, because many people are not comfortable with others describing discomfort or pain or fear or any of those things. But we do get a lot of reward for being optimistic.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
A lot of reward, and so it's important then to be perceived as cheerful and positive and having a handle on things and not getting too worn down or even defeated by symptoms. But the reality is that that's extremely difficult. I can one day just not be able to walk.
Right.
And that's not going to be a good day.
No.
That's not going to be a good day. And it may take me several days to get back to being able to walk. Now, not being able to walk means I also can't get to the bathroom.
Right.
And those kinds of things. And discussing that can be humiliating.
Yes.
Because, I'm an adult.
Right.
I know how to, and I've taught children how to get to the bathroom on time.
Right.
And to be in that kind of situation myself is embarrassing and it's demoralizing. If I can kind of look on the bright side, find something good, make jokes, be positive, I can escape for a little while
Right.
from what's going on. And I also can continue to protect you or anybody else in my life, so that you don't have to deal with it, or it doesn't have to register on you, and it doesn't have to necessarily be something we deal with in our friendship. But this really becomes a problem because after a while, it becomes impossible to talk about any kind of difficult emotion. Being cheerful and all that is a way to get a certain kind of admiration, but it's fake. Like it's not fake from the person because they probably feel relieved about that, but there it is. Oh, you're so brave. You're doing so well with this. Wow, I don't think I could handle that, but I really appreciate what you're doing. And some of that's real, but a lot of it just isn't. And so you kind of feel lost because if you're not actually telling the truth, you're lying about yourself to people who matter. I mean, it's one thing to be positive and optimistic to strangers,
Right.
that makes sense. But if these are friends, family, loved ones, when we aren't talking about our reality, then things start to go missing from the relationship, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a whole process that happens when you start denying and minimizing and invalidating either they to you or you to yourself, and therefore to protect them, that we end up losing out on the emotional experience of being in a relationship.
Yeah, and the people who are close to us do want to give us support as far as they're able, but we make that impossible because they don't know what's wrong or how hard something is or how scary something can be. It's really hard to talk about fear because people want to comfort you and say, there, it's going to be okay.
Right.
Well, it might be, but it might not.
It might
For a
not
while.
be. I can also tell you that at the times when somebody has said, has come to me with a fear of theirs, I've said, well, actually, yeah, that would be frightening and that could happen.
Yeah.
They're not always so happy that I said that.
No, they're not.
No.
But
so I think
it feels risky because you're sharing vulnerability.
Yes.
And that's what we're denying when we're being unfailingly positive, right?
Right. I remember back, and I may not get all the names right, but programs like EST, I think it was called EST, and also The Secret. The Secret became this big fad, and it was all about being positive and ignoring your negative feelings or not having them or pushing them away and just being positive. And The Secret, of course, was if you do this right, if you're positive and see your future, you will manifest it, and if you don't manifest it, you didn't do it right. And all of those things used to make me angry because I kept thinking, but for me to get to being positive, I have to go through these negative feelings. I mean, it was really clear that I had to do that, but I was people would treat me as if there was something innately wrong with me and that I was basically effed up, that I couldn't just let go of negative feelings and be I want to say, those images of, people who are, really embroiled in a cult where their head is twisted to one side and they have this, non-face on except for this smile, and they're absent and vacant except for being, that's what it felt like that they were asking of me. And I just could not go there.
Well, it's so hard to know who are those people. Like, really,
tell me more.
I want to know about people's struggles. Not in a prurient sort of way, but it's part of how I know if I can trust somebody.
Yes.
Have they dealt with big things in their lives?
Mhm.
Have they had to face limitations, disappointments, loss,
Right.
grief?
Right.
You know, then you put experiences of joy, happiness, pleasure, and contentment into a context,
Right.
and you end up with a broader picture of someone, you know. And I mean, I feel like you and I aren't close, but I've known you for years, and
Mhm.
we've kind of touched base on these things
Yep.
occasionally over time, but we do it well together. But I think that's because it's really important to both of us, you know?
I think it's a part of our authentic self. That's my
Yeah,
sense of you, is that's
yeah,
your authentic self. And you would do that with anyone. And I'm the same. And so we would connect on a different level than I might with somebody who isn't doing those things. Right. I
yeah.
mean, and that's part of what you were talking about before, is that when we have to deny and minimize and, be positive for the people around us so that they're not afraid or they don't feel less than or as a failure or not knowing what to do, we do inhibit our ability to be on an emotionally intimate level with people.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
we've denied our own vulnerability. And, our vulnerability is where trust begins,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Because then you find out, is this a person who can listen? Is this
Mhm.
a person that I can really engage with? You'll know that by how I respond.
Right.
But if we resort to these toxic messages about, oh, don't worry, be happy,
Right. Look at the
or
bright side.
it could be worse. Well,
Everything works out. Although I
yeah,
say that all the time too, because
well,
I do
sure.
believe everything works out, but
Well, or it all happens for a reason, and
yes,
one day you'll know. Well, I actually think a whole lot of stuff happens for no reason at all.
it's true. That
And
is true.
I
Yes.
understand that people are afraid of that idea, but
Well,
things
there's no way
happen
to
for
keep
a reason.
yourself safe if things
Yeah.
happen for no reason at all. It is one of the ways we try and control by deluding ourselves into thinking somehow, everything has a reason. And if we know what the reason is, we can make it stop or stop it from
Well, so I
happening.
wish then we would take that more seriously about, oh, let's say climate change
Yes, no
happens for a
kidding.
reason. you know?
All true.
But,
I also, as you're talking, I see us in Canada,
mhm,
and we are nice people in Canada.
mhm.
Probably not as nice as other cultures can be, that I have experienced. But I think in some ways we actually, our culture, our social constructs that we have support the notion of toxic positivity,
Oh, yeah.
i.e., if somebody asks you, how are you? You are supposed to say fine.
Hmm.
There isn't an option for, I'm not doing well. Let me tell you how it is that I'm not doing well. And then
Uh-huh.
just to spill it on people. I have done this. So I know of what I speak.
Yeah, yeah.
I spent about a year saying, what's going to happen if I stop saying fine? And the reactions I got from people were kind of hilarious in some ways. I mean, some people were, handled it well. Other people thought I was just extremely needy.
Hmm.
And
And
then
that's
other
not
people,
okay, right?
no, it's not okay. Needy is not okay. But also other people were a little horrified that I would share certain things with people who just asked me how I was. And it was a real eye opener for me. But I can see how it goes into all of this stuff. We're kind of groomed to be okay in the world. And, we sort of, put different things aside, including around mental health. And we're going to get to that in a minute, how mental health impacts on this or disability impacts on this,
Hmm.
but, there are so many ways that toxic positivity, I feel, is built into the Canadian scene
Yeah.
in and of itself.
That's why
Which,
people say we're so nice.
yes.
We're kind. We apologize a lot,
Oh, all the
but we also
time.
say thank you a lot.
Yes.
And, we're not overtly critical, although we know that privately, when it's just us Canadians, we're extremely critical,
Yes. Oh,
highly
yeah.
analytical, and we're proud of that,
Yeah.
because that's how we show our independence. So it gets to be kind of a double whammy in a way. I mean, I think ultimately toxic positivity is gaslighting.
Tell me more.
Well, it is there to change our experience of reality or make us think about things differently by denying what actually is going on.
Right.
No, I told you we'd make that appointment. Don't you remember? Or, no, I never called you. I didn't spend that money. I didn't do this or that. But
Yeah.
here it's also, I feel fine,
Mm-hmm.
but I may be struggling with a lot of pain. Or we're on the phone, so you can't really know that I'm not moving very well today.
Right.
So you end up with this kind of cognitive dissonance where you have the reality that you live with, and then you have the one that you're portraying.
Right.
And you do that to protect yourself, maybe, or to protect the other person, or just not deal with the whole situation. But you can end up starting to feel very confused and awkward
Mm-hmm.
about things, and need to hold on to that message that people want to hear and that
Right.
you want to be true.
Right.
I mean, I think this keeps a lot of people in abusive relationships too, because
Absolutely.
they
And
look for it. Yeah.
I think also, as you're talking, I'm thinking of the people I know who are very insightful or intuitive, and they pick up on things. And, if they pick up that somebody's angry, but that person isn't acknowledging that they're angry, and that happens over and over and over in their lifetime,
Mhm.
it can be really crazy making. So I think anything done to excess is probably toxic, right?
Mhm.
Like we're a human being. We come into the world. We have, for the most part, most of us in general have a wide range of feelings. We can be happy, sad, scared, angry, jealous. We can be all kinds of things.
Mhm.
Um, Toxic positivity is kind of like a dysfunctional approach to emotional management, if you want to
Yeah.
look at it as, that kind of way. And that we're just not fully acknowledging things that are negative. We somehow have gotten the idea, and I can see exactly why in Canada you get this idea
Mhm.
that you have to be positive, because if you're not, then you're considered a negative human being, and not somebody people want to be around. And I can get that. If somebody's really stuck in negativity, that can be very difficult to be around. But so can toxic positivity, for sure.
Mhm.
Um, and when it comes to mental health, I think it just adds another layer to it, because if it's known that somebody has a mental health challenge, suddenly they're angry, happy, jealous, confused, fearful reactions to things are filtered through this thing called mental health, and they can get all messed up, right? And so you
Right.
as a mental health challenge, I'm sorry, as somebody who has a mental health challenge, you're suddenly having to add another filter. Well, if I get angry, are they going to think I'm going to kill them?
Right.
Right. I mean, it's, and that's not necessarily for me, but I know lots of people who have paranoid schizophrenia. We live in a,
Mhm.
in a, in a community, a world where in this society, popular culture tells us that people with paranoid schizophrenia go out and kill people.
Yes.
So if
Which
they
is
get
not true.
angry, which is not true, it's absolutely not true. But for those folks now, they don't have the same right to be angry without consequence than the rest of us do. And certainly
Right.
women don't have the same right to be angry as
Never,
men do,
ever.
right? So it's, there's a hierarchy going on here. But that's one of the things that I just find about what we were talking about so illuminating, and how much more difficult it is for somebody who is living
Well,
with a mental health challenge.
and if you have to be positive all the time
Mm.
and you can't,
Hmm.
and you can't, then you have to feel like you failed, right?
Hmm.
Well, feeling like you failed at something sure doesn't help your self-esteem at all.
No.
And it can increase your feelings of loneliness and isolation. I'm not feeling good enough to go and see my friend today because, I'm not able to be positive. So I should stay
Right.
home and stay alone. When actually, we all know about all those times we thought, I don't want to do this, but whatever, I'm going out. And then we're so surprised that things are good. It's
Hmm.
great to be somewhere else and see people that matter to us, or, have a cup of coffee.
Right.
But these things that isolate us are not good. I think if we've learned anything during the pandemic, it's that too much alone time is definitely the way to madness, because introspection is painful and hard.
Yes.
And
Or
part of
it can be good. I mean, I
it
don't,
can be good if you've
there
got
are
a
positive things
guide or
about that.
somebody who's there to help you put it in context.
Mm-hmm.
That this experience or feeling you're having right now is not an end point in your life.
Right.
This is not all there is. It's kind of a way marker or an experience that you need to go through, but it's not all there is. There's other things that are going to matter to you too.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably hard to communicate, especially to people who are depressed and anxious, which is more common than we're usually ready to recognize, but it's still a very common sense of, we have to measure up, we have to do things right.
Yeah, I would see that somebody who has depression might never feel like they can be sad without feeling like they have not overcome their depression.
Right.
Which is,
well, and sadness and depression are not the same thing.
No, but they're often seen as the same thing.
They are.
Right, because of the outward representation of it. You mentioned something called tragic optimism.
Right.
I'm very interested in that because I often call myself a pessimistic optimist.
Okay. Well, tragic optimism is a term that was coined by Viktor Frankl in that book, Man's Search for Meaning. And Frankl was a psychotherapist who survived the Holocaust in the camps.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that tragic optimism is the ability to maintain hope and find meaning in life despite its inevitable pain, loss, and suffering. And the way he experienced this himself was he got through life in the concentration camp because he believed he would be reunited with his wife when this was all over. So that was the thing that gave him a sense of purpose and meaning and moving forward. Now, ultimately,
I just want to stop you there because I've actually heard that by somebody else who survived, who she didn't call it tragic optimism, but she said basically the same thing. She survived because she had a boyfriend before she went into the camp. And she always, every day, she thought about what she would say to him if she saw him that day. And she says, that's what made me survive. So it's interesting that these two different people, I don't know if they know each other. It would be presumptuous to think they do, but interesting. Thank you. I just needed to say that.
Well, it's part of Frankl developed a thing called logotherapy, where largely what he did was help people find a sense of meaning, purpose that could give them hope, or at least the ability to keep on going. And that could be a relationship. For some people, it's a belief in something. I mean, it's sad that Frankl's wife also died in the camp. He didn't know that. So when he came out, then he was faced with this loss.
Right.
But he also had developed a mechanism for dealing with that. But he found that there were distinct differences between people in the camps, some who gave up completely. And I'm not ever going to say that that was wrong, but that was where their sense of life and purpose led them, and others who would cling to something that could keep them going. And that's so different from toxic positivity, which says we have to put a good face on this no matter what. We're not tolerating any negative thoughts here today. We're only going to be positive. That kind of stuff that invalidates completely your reality. Because what we need is to be able to recognize that we're experiencing pain or confusion or some kind of suffering. And at the same time, we're moving through these things. There are other things in life as well.
You're extending, you're experiencing all these things, but you're extending yourself into the future. You're seeing yourself in the future getting something, having something, doing something that is meaningful to you.
Frankel would have said that these are, when we have trauma and other really painful things, if we can find a way to see them as a learning opportunity, then we start to develop methods for going forward. Now, I don't ever want to get into that, oh, this is an opportunity to learn something, because I think that can be really toxic too. But if it's a way of discovering things about ourselves and each other, that can deepen our lives and our connections, that's a good thing. I mean, I know I'm prone to depression myself. There are some things definitely that will trigger that. And that doesn't mean I avoid them, but I'm careful.
Right.
I'm careful about when and how I'm going to think about that or write about that or who I will talk to. Because if I'm feeling very depressed, I sure don't want to hear, don't worry, be happy.
Right.
It all works out in the end. Because even if that's true, right now it's pretty dark and scary, right?
When you have been in a situation where you're depressed or you're dealing with your physical disabilities that come from MS and somebody around you is saying those things, it could be worse, don't worry, look on the bright side, blah, blah. Can I just ask what the emotional reaction is inside of you?
I inside of myself, I distance myself a couple of steps.
You're right.
And I think, they mean well, but this person is not my friend. My friend would say, that's really hard.
Yeah, tell me more.
Tell me more.
Yeah.
What might help? How could I help? Yeah.
Yeah. So that person is not your friend in this scenario.
Yeah.
Might be a friend in another scenario, right?
Right.
And I think that's one of the things we need to understand about our friends is that they come in categories. This friend is good for doing this kind of thing with, but this person is somebody I can talk to and really get into it and know that they're going to be there. And
right.
I sometimes think we put our friends all into the same cookie cutter and then get upset that they're just not living up to the borders we've given them.
Yeah,
so
it's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anne, for coming and chatting with me about this. It's
it's lovely. I always enjoy talking to you.
Really. I always enjoy talking to you too. I think we should probably do it more than we have been doing. So
we should.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Don't go away, folks. We'll be right back. You're listening to Rethreading Madness. I'm Bernadine Fox, and today I have folks from Gallery Gachet here in Vancouver, BC, to talk about program that is coming up. I think you guys call it a workshop. It's on disability justice. And today I have Rebel Fayola Rose and Olumoroti George here to talk about that. Rebel is a international disabled social practice / multimedia artist who is focused on educating, holding space, and ensuring access. And as a facilitator, Rebel reflects back the open presence of the community and uses those reflections to keep his work grounded in the needs of those most targeted by oppression. And Olumoroti is the artistic director at Gallery Gachet. And Olumoroti, maybe you would like to just give us a very quick description of what Gachet is for our listeners who might not be familiar with it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bernadine. I am Olumoroti George, the artistic director of Gachet. And Gachet is a gallery space located in the downtown east side. And our mandate revolves around showcasing the works of artists and community members alike that kind of speak to the situations that they face and their own personal experiences, and tying those to general societal inequalities and politics. So at its core, Gachet is a very politically and socially engaged gallery space. And we also try and showcase artists who are speaking to new approaches to art creation and community building. And we do so by hosting workshops, programs, and events that speaks to Gachet's general mandate, and also whatever forms and new aesthetics and new approaches that the artists are utilizing to speak to our mandate in order to generally reach the communities that we serve.
And we were going to do an image description and access check-in, and I was hoping that Rebel, you would start us off with that.
Yeah, my name is Rebel Fayola Rose. I use he, him pronouns. I am a light-skinned person of the African diaspora. I have black curly hair and I am wearing red makeup today. My access needs are met, and I'll pass it off to Moroti.
Hi, my name is Murati George. I am a dark-skinned person. I am originally from Lagos, Nigeria, in Africa, but I am now currently in Strathcona, in so-called Vancouver on the unceded lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. And my access needs today are met.
And just to follow suit, this is Bernadine Fox, and I'm a white descendant of settlers who've been here since the 1600s. I'm familially connected to the Indigenous community. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm in my pajamas. So, because we're recording at home, so I am actually my access needs are very well contained. We're coming to you from the unceded traditional territory of the Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish, and Musqueam territories. Can one of you tell me what disability justice is?
Disability justice comes out of the disability rights movement, which was largely white and focused on mobility and vision impairments. Disability justice takes an intersectional approach to disability and focuses on multiply marginalized targeted populations who are disabled. So women and children who are disabled, people of color who are disabled, and people who have multiple identities that include disability, and focus on like across disability solidarity and across movement solidarity, understanding that we cannot get free from racism or sexism or homophobia until all disabled people are also free.
Right. And when you talk about disabilities, can I just ask you to be really clear about which disabilities you're talking about, just the range of them?
Yes. When I speak of disability, I am speaking very broadly. It could be a chronic illness, a mobility impairment, neurodiversity, such as autism or ADHD, mental health history of mental health diagnosis, or even the experience of ableism without identifying as disabled. So for example, some deaf people do not identify as disabled, but they would still be included. And the same goes for some autistic people who do not identify as disabled, but would be very welcome in my space.
Right. Okay, thank you. That's very clear. So my sense of it is what you're talking about, the basis of it is intersectionality, is that we are not just one thing, we are a whole group of things, and that our job is to, well, not our job, but in disability justice, you are taking into account the fact that there are multiple ways that people come to any event or any situation. We come with all our different labels.
Yeah.
And Rebel, you are putting together what's called a disability justice dreaming session
on Friday at Gachet. And then next week, on Tuesday and Friday at Vancouver Art Gallery.
And that's from 11 to 1 p.m. And people have to pre-register for that. So I just put that out there to begin with. But to start with, let's just talk about what is a dreaming session? What happens here?
Well, a dreaming session is a very gentle and slow reflective process where the audience is provided reflection questions that we all think about and participate in. And it's just a dialogue about our lived experiences, our hopes, the pasts that bring us here, and the futures that are barely imaginable. And it comes out of Afrofuturisms and Indigenous futurisms.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yes, so Afrofuturisms examine what the world might be without racism, and what worlds live beyond the impossible.
That sounds magnificent, actually. And when people come, say they come to Gachet, are you taking them through some kind of I guess what I want to do here is I want to make sure people who have a trauma experience know exactly what they're walking into so that there isn't any surprises. So are they sitting in chairs? Are they sitting on the floor? Are they do they have to close their eyes? Can you describe that a
Oh,
little bit?
yeah, people are welcome to participate in any way that makes them comfortable. There will be seating. People are welcome to sit, stand, lie on the floor. There will be heating pads and blankets. And we will just be talking. And we ask that people use content notices if there will be difficult content coming. And then afterward, there will be snacks where we can decompress and chat. And I will be available to talk during or afterward if anyone has a difficult experience.
Right.
And people are welcome to close their eyes, open their eyes, fidget, move around, take a break, go to the bathroom, whatever is needed in the moment.
Right. That sounds actually very trauma informed. Thank you for that. And so each session starts at 11 a.m. and they end at 1. As you said, there's refreshments available. And the next workshop you said is on the 27th at 11 a.m.
Well, there's one on the 24th, and then there's one on what I assume is the 27th. I'm not very calendar informed.
That's okay. That's okay. And Moroti, is there anything else that you would like people to know about coming to Gachet for this event?
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Rebel, for such an in-depth explanation of what the dreaming sessions are. But I would say that like with this event, I really want people to understand that there really isn't a lot of pressure. I attended one of the dream sessions last week at the VAG, and it was really just a time where we could all reflect, like Rebel said.
Mm,
It was a time where a lot of experiences and stories were told, but there wasn't really any pressure to tell these stories. I understand that trauma manifests in different ways for different people, and different people have different understandings of their experiences and their disability. But I would say that something that Rebel does amazingly is allowing people to sit with their thoughts, but also letting people know that like communication um, happens in different forms, and some people would rather communicate with themselves um, as opposed to the public in their setting and wherever
mhm.
they're at that point. So I would say that it's very important for people who would like to attend these dreaming sessions to know that there is genuinely no pressure, that what we're essentially trying to do is make space for people living with disability to understand that they are that their feelings are valid, and that they can envision the otherwise outside of our current realities for themselves and for others too. And this is essentially something I'm really trying to do at Gachet during my tenure as artistic director. I really want people to challenge the idea of what an art space should be. This is happening at the gallery. And even though we're working with the Vancouver Art Gallery, which is an institution in itself and would take some time to fully change, I feel that because of how small Gachet is and where it's located, the idea of community space being held in a gallery setting would continue to develop, and people would invest more in these community spaces. And as they're doing that, they would also expect more from their community spaces and gallery spaces. And that would also cause larger galleries to think about how they are how they are perceived to perceived by the communities that they are meant to serve and such. But yeah.
Interesting. Thank you so much, both of you, for coming and talking about the Disability Justice Dreaming session down at Gallery Gachet. And for folks who are listening, Gallery Gachet is at 9 West Hastings and the heart of the downtown east side. And there is parking lots nearby. It's a fully accessible location, but if you have any questions, you can call them at 604-687-2468 or contact them via email at contact@gachet.org. Thank you again, both of you, for coming in and chatting about this. I'm actually looking forward to coming down and doing the session myself. So
Beautiful.
Thank you so much, Bernadine.
if you're around my age, you will remember the EST movement and more recently, The Secret. I never attended EST, and specifically because my impression of people coming out of there was that there was no room in their lives for anything negative. People around them who allowed themselves to express negative feelings or had negative responses were kind of shunned and treated as if they were not enlightened enough. The Secret, I did kind of study. I watched the videos and read the articles, etc. I even made a vision board, but again, the premise is you can manifest anything by being positive, and if you failed in that manifestation, it was because you weren't positive enough about your own future. Now, don't get me wrong, I believe that to attain one's goals, moving towards them with a positive attitude is going to work much better than the alternative. But life has a way of inserting itself into any plans we have, and the issue of toxic positivity can mean that you are not truly recognizing what is going on around you. My appreciation to Anne Bemrose for chatting with me about this important topic in the lives of those who live with disabilities. My thanks also to Rebel Fayola Rose and Olumoroti George for coming and chatting about their disability justice dreaming sessions at Gallery Gachet. We'll be doing further programming on the importance of disability justice, so stay tuned for that. But if you're interested in attending the dreaming sessions, as I said, you must pre-register. The next available one is January 27th, 2023 at Gallery Gachet, and there are two at the Vancouver Art Gallery on January 31st and February 3rd. All are from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Rethreading Madness is now being heard throughout the world, from across North America to Turkey and Australia and Norway, just to name a few. We're also accessible via streaming wherever you get your podcasts, and you can download them so that you can listen to them wherever, whenever works best for you. And as always, our thanks goes out to you for joining us today. Stay safe out there. I'm Bernadine Fox, and you've just listened to Rethreading Madness, the podcast that dares to change how we think about mental health. We air live on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM, every Tuesday at 5 p.m. or online at coopradio.org. If you have questions or feedback about this program or want to share your story or have something to say to us, we want to hear from you. You can reach us by email, rethreadingmadness@coopradio.org. If you enjoyed this show, subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.
I've never been further from knowing what the hell I'm gonna do when I can't seem to find my way under or over or through. Just when I'm ready to give up the fight, there you are when we turn out the lights, and it's alright. cliche, just words people say to be nice. Or some